Hello and welcome to Washington Unplugged. I'm Capitol Hill correspondent Nancy Cordes. With jobless numbers now at a 23-year high, the president is hosting a so-called job summit at the White House today to hear some solutions from business leaders. Republican House Whip Eric Cantor has been leading the charge against some of the administration's plans, and I'm here in his Capitol Hill office this morning.
Anytime.
Congressman, thank you so much for having us. First off, tell me what you think of the president's job summit that he's holding today.
Well, I know the job summit is occurring at the White House. There have been plenty of summits before. I'm just hoping this is a little bit more than a photo op. And because what I have heard over the last several weeks, certainly during the Thanksgiving break, people are afraid. They are very, very worried about the economic future of this country. They're worried about their jobs. They're worried about how they're going to pay for college tuition next semester. They're in need of help. And the administration, Speaker Pelosi in this Congress continue to say they want to create jobs. The problem is we had the passage of a stimulus bill that has not proven to create the jobs that they promised. There is continued discussion of a card check bill, which all involved in terms of job creators have said that is a job killer. You've got the president and the speaker now saying they're flying to Copenhagen next week to talk about the cap and trade bill, which is an overwhelmingly job-killing bill. So it's almost as if some folks in Washington are practicing the do as I say, not as I do mantra. And listen, I yesterday tried to put forth a no-cost jobs plan. It was a set of common sense principles that I believe most people in America can get behind, whether Republican or Democrat, to actually make some progress towards creating an environment for job creation.
Now let me ask you about that, because a no-cost jobs plan sounds great, something that everyone could be in favor of. But during one of the worst financial downturns in this country's history, is something like that really realistic?
Well, I mean, we've seen now, passage of bills which spend nearly $800 billion without the effect of creating jobs. The promise.
But let me stop you right there. Hasn't the stimulus bill created, as the CBO just reported this week, between 600,000 and 1.2 million jobs?
Listen, this is a very debatable subject here. I think we need to listen to the American people. I don't think there's anybody in America who would accept the fact that the economy is doing better. Anybody who suggests that there's been any success here, I believe, is woefully out of touch with the American people.
So you think that it's not enough that the stimulus bill has created these jobs, it should have done more?
The stimulus bill has not created the jobs. We have 10.2% unemployment. There has been over 1.2 million jobs lost this year alone since the passage of that bill. So again, this money is not what we need. What we need really is to, number one, stop the self-imposed obstruction by the federal government to job creation. We've got an administration here who has passed over 100 rules, put into place, promulgating these rules that put added cost on job creators. And there's more coming down the pike. We have got continued discussion of this $1 trillion plus government overhaul of our health care. Inside of those is a myriad of tax hikes, most of which would affect small businesses in this country. How can we say we're really about creating jobs when all that they're doing is trying to say we need to take more money from job creators?
So your plan includes cutting regulations, freezing taxes, boosting free trade. Aren't these things that the Bush administration tried during its 2 terms with limited success?
Well, I would say look at the unemployment that we had over the last several years and decade. It certainly was a lot lower than it is now. We haven't experienced unemployment the way we are now in decades.
And you don't think that's a result of the financial downturn that started during the Bush administration?
Well, I don't think that there is any one person to blame for that. There's a lot of blame to go around everywhere. So we're dealing right now with people out of work. We know that in this country, nearly 70% of the new jobs that can be created will be created by the private sector, by small business people. So if we know that, Why aren't we focusing our efforts on small businesses and trying to create an environment that is conducive for entrepreneurs to put their capital back to work to create jobs? That's our point, is that there are plenty of things that we can do at a no-cost option that businesses, investors will say, hey, wait a minute, I think Washington finally hears us. Stop this extreme government activism. Stop continuing to try and make it more difficult for us. Let us in the private sector regain our footing, create the jobs, and then maybe Washington can do whatever Washington does.
Your opponents have said, well, look, it's all well and good when you're not the party in power to say we can do all of this at no cost. But when you're actually in power and you have to make those tough decisions, how in the world would you fight this recession that's worse than anything we've seen in 50 years without spending any money? Take a look at your own state, for example, Virginia, which was facing a $2.8 billion budget shortfall before the stimulus was passed. The governor was looking at slashing public school funding, slashing public health, cutting jobs, and those were things that they were able to stave off. How would you have tackled that without any cost?
Listen, Virginia has been in the top, I think, 5 states with an increase in budget expenditures over the last 10 years. Okay? I mean, just as working families and small businesses are doing, we have got to expect our state governments and the federal government to tighten the belt, to live within their means. That's where our proposal comes in. You know, these are cost-neutral proposals. You know, we can do some of these things. If we were in the majority, Republicans would say, okay, let's agree not to raise taxes in a recession. We can all agree on that. I know there's some differences in terms of people's beliefs in tax hikes, but in terms of a period of high unemployment, no one thinks that that's a good idea. It's a no-brainer. You know, we also can say, look, let's signal that we're going to get serious about lowering the deficit, because that also is impacting the ability for investors to see that Washington's going to be able to live up to its obligations. So if we were just to freeze spending right now on the discretionary side of the ledger, we could immediately save $53 billion. And remember, already this year, because of the passage of the stimulus bill, we are increasing that spending at 12% annually. Nobody, no family, no business is incurring that kind of expense right now.
And I take it when you talk about no more tax increases, you're talking about specifically about the health care reform bill and cap and trade.
And I'm also talking about the taxes embedded in existing law. We cannot afford to see taxes go up right now when you're counting on people with capital to go about putting that to work so we can get people jobs again.
Mm-hmm. We've got some new unemployment numbers coming out tomorrow. Any thoughts on that?
Listen, again, I think it's all about jobs. And I would call upon the president, number one, to issue an executive order. Let's stop the harmful rules and regulations that are detriment to job creation. Number two, why don't we not go to Copenhagen and talk about a cap and trade bill that we know will prove very costly to families and businesses? Let's stay here, work together to see if we can create some jobs.
Got it. Congressman Cantor, thank you so much for talking about us today on this very important topic.
Thank you.
And that's it for Washington Unplugged today. I'm Nancy Cordes. Stay tuned tomorrow when Bob Schieffer will be in the chair. Thanks for watching.